This is the view of downtown Cleveland in Ohio, and in the background sits the Burke Lakefront Airport along the shore of Lake Erie. Today, the second half of the FedEx Championship Series gets underway on the runways of this fast and bumpy track, where 27 drivers will be out to prevent Alex Zanardi increasing his championship lead. Hello, and a very warm and, can I say, sunny welcome to Cleveland. It is an absolutely superb day here. Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw with you, looking forward to a tremendous race on this 2-mile temporary track, which is normally used as an airport. Now, the fastest man around this airport this weekend so far has been Jimmy Vasser. He set his time on Friday afternoon in first qualifying, but nobody could match or better that time in second qualifying on Saturday. Although the battle was intense, Jimmy Vasser, third in the championship, 2 wins to his name already, and he is also going to threaten Zanardi in the title chase. Alex Zanardi himself starts on the second row of the grid. He tried hard to match Jimmy Vasser, but he couldn't quite do it. And he starts alongside the man he seems to always spend his life battling with, Brian Herter. So Zanardi and Herter on the second row of the grid. But what of the man who lies down in third place in the championship? Greg Moore, in fact in second place. Greg Moore right down in 12th place. And as at Portland, he's got a lot of work to do. Remember what happened in Portland when Greg Moore started from 14th. This is the view of what happened in that previous round of the championship. Greg Moore starting back on the 7th row of the grid, deciding to try and make up as much ground as possible on that first corner. He tried to do too much too soon. He was across the curve, onto the grass, and soon took out Christian Fittipaldi. This was the view from on board Bobby Rahal. Watch out for the blue and white car launching itself. That was Greg Moore. Greg Moore on probation as a result of that incident. So he's got to watch out. He's got to behave himself, and he's going into one of the most notorious first corners here in Cleveland. How does he feel about it?
Normally there's a couple people who have problems going into turn 1, so we just got to make sure that we're not one of them. You know, I made that mistake in Portland and cost us some valuable points in the championship, but you know, really it doesn't weigh on my mind at all now that we're going into this race here.
12th on the grid, but more importantly, he's suffering from a stomach flu this weekend, which is also going to affect his chances. Let's take a look at the grid then. Jimmy Vasser, his 6th career pole, and Dario Franchitti on the front row for the 3rd time this season. The second row, Alex Zanardi, 4 wins to his name already this year, and Brian Herter, who came close to winning here in 1995.
Row 3 of the grid, Paul Tracy, he won here in 1993, and Mark Blundell, he qualified 3rd here last year and 6th this time around. Row 4, Michael Andretti, he's going to be strong this afternoon. He also won in 91, and Mauricio Gujwin is his best qualifying of the year so far.
Alonso Jr. on the 5th row of the grid. He won here in 1985 and 1994, and Bobby Rahal won the first ever race on this track back in 1982. Gilles de Ferrand, another former winner on this track, and got beaten by Zanardi last year, and there is Greg Moore alongside him.
Row 7 of the grid, Christian Fittipaldi, a lack of grip for that car so far this weekend, and Scott Pruitt, he was angry after being held up by Tony Kanaan in qualifying. Row 8 of the grid, Patrick Carpentier, teammate to Greg Moore, and Richie Hearn in the Budweiser Swift.
Next up, 9th row, Adrian Fernandez, lying 4th in the championship. Alongside him is Max Papis, the fastest of the Toyota-powered cars this weekend. Then it's the leading rookie, Tony Kanaan. He lines up 19th. Alongside him is Robbie Gordon with a new Toyota engine.
Row 11, JJ Leto, still struggling a little bit with that car, Hogan Racing. Michel Jourdain Jr., that's for Peyton Coyne team. Row 12 of the grid, 2 Brazilians, Helio Castro Neves, onto Ribeiro, all sorts of problems this weekend, including a blown engine in qualifying.
Row 13, Arndt Meyer, the 25-year-old German. Alongside him, PJ Jones for the 2nd race in succession. They're together. And the final row of the grid, Alex Barron, the former Atlantic champion of last year, and Dennis Vitolo, who's about a 2 3/4 slower than Barron in qualifying. One of the stories of this race will be to save tyres, as Dario Franchitti told us yesterday.
For tomorrow, we're going to make the tyres last. That's going to be the trick here. I think we're going to work with the car, but we look pretty good with tyres. We haven't used too many sets, and we've got some nice tyres for the race.
A critical issue indeed there, Jeremy, and in fact the Firestone users are perhaps in a little bit of trouble here. The Goodyear tyre users may be in better shape.
Certainly the Firestone seem to be wearing particularly the rear of the tyres, but it's a hard track on the cars and the drivers. Turn 1 very, very tight there, always incidents there, and leads very fast chicanes from the runways to the taxiways. Very fast track, very bumpy also.
Now then, we're getting ready to start. It's going to be a very quick start indeed here. Jimmy Vasser and Dario Franchitti then on the front row together. The pace car lights are out. They have a one turn to come down. They've got a straight and then a chicane to go through before they take the green flag. So Jimmy Vasser already beginning to get himself into position. Franchitti alongside. Watch out for the other target car behind. That's Alex Zanardi. Brian Herter with him, remember. And just think of all the battles that those two have had throughout this year and in fact in previous years as well.
Absolutely right. We're getting ready for the start. They're just coming up towards the final corner. That camera really foreshortened that long straight leading into this final turns 9 and 10.
Now this is into the chicane, and this will be a key corner in the race, but they've just got to get through here safely side by side, and then it'll be the blast down towards turn number 1. The start-finish line is very close to that turn number 1, and away they go, and Jimmy Vasser gets on the power and leads them away. Watch out for Zanardi. Zanardi on the inside of Franchitti. Zanardi goes up into second to Herter. Herter tries to go around the outside, and everybody tries to find a piece of space. Herter's on the grass. Zanardi squeezing. We've lost somebody there. Tony Kanaan, I think it is, who spun down at that first corner, and it's Vasser who leads. Zanardi in second. Herter got squeezed onto the grass, and he's dropped back a few places now, and Franchitti therefore in third, and Tracy is in fourth place. There is Robbie Gordon in trouble as well. One of the cars we expected to see an incident. In fact, we've done pretty well there, but Robbie Gordon's been left at turn 1.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan did get going again at the back of the field, but as you say, Robbie Gordon seems to be dead in the water. And that's a brand new Toyota engine, phase 5 engine there for Robbie Gordon, but not going to do him much good today, it appears. Well, the car doesn't seem to be damaged, and the safety team is down there. They are trying to push the car. I'm actually looking out of our booth here, and he has just got a push start. So with a bit of luck, we won't be having a full course caution.
Well, let's hope they're making it round to the end of the first lap already, and Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi, the two teams had 6 victories this season, are already beginning to get away from the two cool green cars. It is in fact Tracy in third and Franchitti in fourth. So an amazingly good start from Paul Tracy. He stayed out of trouble, but he got himself into third.
Yeah, he went down the inside of Dario Franchitti. They were 3 abreast really, with Herter on the outside trying to go around the outside of everybody. He did go around the outside of everybody. Unfortunately, he went too wide because he was on the grass on the exit. Dropped back to 8th position, actually, Brian Herter wasn't dicing with Bobby Rahal, his teammate, as they came past us to complete lap 1.
And another great start from Alonso Jr., Jeremy, because he started in 9th position, and there he is, looking 5th place ahead of Michael Andretti, Mark Blundell, who's in 7th, Brian Herter, who was the main man to lose out. He got squeezed out by Zanardi onto the grass. Herter lays down in 8th place, then it's Rahal 9th, and Fittipaldi in 10th position. Behind him, Guterman, De Ferran, Pruitt, then Hearn and Carpentier are top 15, as at the moment we ride on board with the Italian Alex Zanardi, and a good chance to see just how bumpy this racetrack is as they cross from a taxiway onto a runway and then back again. The transitions really are very bumpy, and that's what the drivers and teams have been working on all weekend long, trying to get the car to handle. Now in fact in the race they are tending to run the car slightly differently to how they run them in qualifying. They don't want to forsake too much straight line speed, because overtaking here obviously is quite possible, as this man Alex Zanardi showed us last year when he fought his way up from 22nd position to take over the lead of the race with some 5 laps to go. Just shows you how possible it is to overtake. But at the moment it's Jimmy Vasser who's getting away and just opening up that little advantage over Alex Zanardi in 2nd place. Then the 2 Team Green cars, team formation here at the moment. The Ganassi team up front, 1 and 2, then Team Green running 3 and 4, with behind then the first of the Penske's, with Al Unser Jr. in 5th position. Fuel consumption is going to be one of the major worries here today, as is tyre wear. Here, it's all gone wrong for Greg Moore, for Helio Castroneves and for JJ Leto. There may be 1 or 2 others involved. We've just seen an accident which was started out by Greg Moore, believe it or not. Greg had made a bad start. He was down in 17th position. And remember what we told you earlier, he's been suffering this weekend. He's not been well. There is Moore hitting the grass. He spins it coming through turn number 8. Now that's not so bad, but then it's people who come round and collect him. Jourdain collects him. Helio Castroneves went out, and then the big hit from JJ Leto and a very heavy cloud. It's good to see that both drivers are out of their cars. You can see JJ standing beside his car, and that goes a long way to show us, Jeremy, just how strong the front end of these cars are. Very important in this form of racing.
Absolutely right. They have to make sure they can withstand some very heavy impacts with the wall on the high-speed ovals, and that sort of an accident there as well. And I think we saw all of the drivers out of those cars with a heavy impact indeed, and poor old Greg Moore, though, it's just been a nightmare weekend for him, and he was the one that caused that, and unfortunately when he spun around he didn't keep his foot on the brakes and just came right back across the racetrack and into the path of those other cars. Absolutely no way they could avoid him.
No, that's right. I mean, they're pretty much committed once they've turned into the corner. There was no way they could change line once they were going through there. So turn number 8 is the cause of the incident here. Of course, it means that our race leader, Jimmy Vasser, is behind the pace car. There's the field coming through. It's Vasser from Zanardi. Let's take another look at the replay. He got close to Carpentier, perhaps lost a bit of front-end downforce, which made him run wide. That caused the spin, and then, as you say, didn't perhaps get on the brakes quickly enough. Several cars hitting him. It wouldn't have made any difference to JJ. JJ was with other cars and just basically came round and clouted the front of Moore's machine. Bits of debris all over the place. Look at that front suspension unit there that's been ripped off one of the cars, probably Greg Moore's or perhaps JJ's, and again another angle. He was pretty close to the back of Patrick.
I think he just realized he was getting too close. I think he's just trying to get out of the throttle, and it's very, very bumpy through that part of the racetrack on that taxiway there between the two runways, and I think he just got away from it, got a little bit wide, and once you put on a wheel on the grass there at 120 miles an hour, he was probably doing, they do as much as 130 through there, but let's say he was doing 120 and got that rear wheel on the grass, and around she went.
Yeah, it was Ribeiro in the Penske who got through safely at that point. Alonso Jr., of course, running up near the front. He's in 5th place. And the others picking their way through. But Ribeiro did a good job there, because the car before him, Helio Castroneves, hit Moore's car, and the car behind him, JJ Leto, also hit him. So Ribeiro obviously got a good vision of that fairly early on. There's Robbie Gordon in the pits now. They may well have decided to put a splash of fuel in. This race is going to be very, very tough to get through on 2 stops. It could be a bit of a tortoise and hare type race, with some people going for the 3 stops, but other people really trying to stretch it on the 2 stops.
Yeah, I was speaking to a couple of the engineers this morning. They reckon they probably need 12 to 15 laps of caution in order to be able to make it on just 2 pit stops. And Robbie Gordon, he'd spun off at the first corner in any case, so maybe his tyres might have been flat spotted in any case, so nothing to gain, nothing to lose, I should say, by making that pit stop, and perhaps everything to gain later on. Top it up with fuel, and he should now certainly be able to make it to the end on 2 more pit stops.
So Jimmy Vasser leads after 6 laps, but we've had a fairly long caution period already. Zanardi chases in 2nd. After 7 laps, followed by Alex Zanardi, Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti and Al Unser Jr. 6th place, Michael Andretti. 7th, Mark Blundell. 8th, Brian Herter. 9th, Bobby Rahal. And 10th, Christian Fittipaldi. If you're wondering why they're all going so slowly, it's because we had an accident involving Greg Moore. He started a sequence off by spinning it through turn number 8 of several cars hitting his stranded car in the middle of the track. So we've lost Michel Jourdain, we've lost JJ Leto, we've lost Moore himself, and who else we've lost? Somebody else who gave him a heli clouds, Helio Castroneves I mentioned. So we've got quite a few out already. That's some 4 cars involved in that one single incident, and it's a great shame for the likes of JJ and Helio Castroneves, both rookies in the championship, of course. Castroneves running 2nd in the rookie battle. But talking of that rookie battle, Jeremy, the other one, Tony Kanaan, he's doing quite well, isn't he?
Certainly is. He had that spin at the first corner, so rejoined, well, last but one actually, because Robbie Gordon was got going well after Tony Kanaan. But before the incident came out, he'd already passed 5 cars, in actual fact, and then when the incident happened, he also got past Andre Ribeiro, so he's actually up into 18th, which is pretty impressive. So they certainly made a lot of changes to that car this morning, in fact, before the warm-up, and he was a lot happy with the car. He certainly wasn't happy to qualify way back down there in 19th position, but the car was much better. It was right in the bumps, so much better this morning. Tony Kanaan much happier and showing it already.
So there's Tony, but at the moment, of course, it's Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi who head the field. The 2 Ganassi cars in great shape. Lead pack with Vasser, Zanardi, then Tracy and Franchitti, then Unser and Andretti. You can see they're just about finished up the clear-up operation after the accident involving Greg Moore, with JJ Leto, Michel Jourdain Jr. and Helio Castroneves, and it doesn't look like it should be too much longer now.
No, the jet drive, we just saw a shot of that in the foreground, just coming through the chicane ahead of the pace car, just blowing some of the debris away finally, and I think that'll pull off probably the end of the front straight, and then we should be able to get back to racing, I would hope, with maybe just a 1 more lap of caution.
Good. Now there's some stories we're getting through from the pits already. It might be early in the race. We've only completed some what is it, 9 laps out of the 100 so far, and 10 in fact as they just go across the line this time. But Jimmy Vasser, the one who's leading, he's in trouble already, would you believe it? And it's a gearbox problem.
Yeah, this morning certainly in the warm-up he had a bulky gear change which actually caused him to over-rev the engine. They had to change that engine. Grant Weaver's crew put in a new Honda motor for the race, and now he's having some problems again with the gear change, and I think that's not allowing him to use the full throttle shift mechanism, so he's having to use a clutch each time to change gear.
Well, that's going to cost him time. There are something like 2,000 gear changes in the course of a race on this track, and it's a tough racetrack on gearboxes as it is. I know that Penske are concerned about it because of the strains it puts on the gearbox, so Jimmy Vasser has a problem. Down in the pits we've got Gary Gerald with Greg Moore.
And back in Cleveland at Burke Lakefront Airport, Greg Moore back in the pits. How close a call did that turn out to be from your seat?
Well, I mean, I had 3 guys hit me, so I mean, very, very, very close. And JJ was the biggest one, I think, that hit me. But you know, it's unfortunate for everyone here on the Players Forsyth team. You know, we were quick this morning in the warm-up, and I had a really bad start, just being a bit too timid, and then just, you know, past a couple of guys, just working up through the field, and just the car bottom went off the track a little bit, and that was it.
Happy that you're all right. Look, get upstairs. We're ready to go green, Bob.
So bad news for Greg Moore, 38 points behind Zanardi coming into this race in second place in the championship, but looks as though Jimmy Vasser may well be able to take that second place in the title battle. There are some 10 points between them at the moment, between Vasser and Moore. And then, of course, we would see a Ganassi 1-2 in the series. Look at this. They're beginning to build up the speed now. We're ready to go racing once again. They go through the chicane, head down the straight, and then they will pick up the green flag. Look at Zanardi. Look at Vasser. Vasser was on the grass coming out of the chicane. Now they're coming down to take the green flag. Is Zanardi going to go for it down the inside? He's having a good old go. Vasser comes in wide, and Zanardi goes through. Now that goes back, but Vasser cuts back on the inside, and now they're heading up towards a right-hander. So who's going to have the advantage? Zanardi is a fraction ahead, but they've got to watch out for Paul Tracy, who's behind them. And finally, Zanardi does take that position. Tracy tries to go around Vasser, and he does it. Wow, that was an amazing piece of overtaking from Paul Tracy there. And watch out for Dario Franchitti, who's right in that battle. Vasser comes back. Oh, and Franchitti goes up the inside of both of them. And Tracy goes into second. Franchitti loses out. He goes back to third. Vasser's on the outside, and watch out for Alonso Jr. on the inside.
This is just a fantastic racetrack. There's Michael Andretti making a move on Alonso Jr. All sorts of dramas there. This is a great racetrack. There's so much room here. Yes, you can defend your position going into a turn, but it's going to cost you on the exit, and that's where people are going to pass you, and that's exactly what happened there. Tremendous stuff. Alex Zanardi, meanwhile, well out of the front, but here is that battle there. For 5th place now is Jimmy Vasser.
Well, you have to wonder how much that having to use the clutch is affecting him. It will affect him a lot as he changes up and down the gears, and it may well be that he's just getting caught out by that. It may take him a few laps to get used to reprogramming his brain into using the clutch, and these quick shift mechanisms in a way feel strange using the clutch. There's such a short time it takes to change gear that if you actually have to dip the clutch to do that, the whole sequence goes wrong, and Jimmy Vasser perhaps struggling as a result. On board with Michael Andretti, who's behind Jimmy Vasser now. Vasser, the pole sitter who led the first part of this race, but has now seen that lead drop down to a 4th position with Michael Andretti chasing him.
Yeah, Michael Andretti, ever the opportunist there, and certainly able to take advantage of Alonso Jr. being caught out by that 3-car, the Bresley were coming out of turn 6 and 7. There is a super shot of Michael Andretti coming down now towards the final, turn 9 and turn 10, chicane there, right, left, very fast corner, 4th gear.
And there he comes out of that one and onto the next straight, building up a bit of speed up behind Jimmy Vasser. As we look at that great onboard shot there, you can see how close the two of them are. Vasser in the red car, then Michael Andretti in the black Newman Haas Swift with the Ford Cosworth power units, and that Ford engine really is putting out the horsepower on these long straights as well. They've been amongst the fastest generally on the speed tracks. There's no problems about horsepower from that Ford engine, and of course the Goodyear tyre on that Swift chassis, they're pretty hopeful for this race. In race conditions, that tyre is looking very good. The Firestone runners, some of them, after about 15 laps, we might expect them to start losing a bit of pace. Something to watch out for.
Certainly is, but you know, Alex Zanardi, he really has been a master this year, and he's been particularly good at saving his tyres, even at some of the other races where maybe people have been burning up their right rear tyres on, well, one side or the other really, but he seems to be able to pussyfoot the car just enough to not lose any speed, but look after those tyres, and that's going to be crucial, I think, this afternoon.
It is going to be crucial. Look at Michael Andretti having a little think about getting past Vassar, but look at who's behind Michael Andretti. None other than Alonso Jr., twice the winner here in Cleveland, and now he's got a car that really is beginning to work for him. Finally, the calculations, the theory of this brand new Penske chassis are beginning to make their presence felt on the racetrack. We've seen it once or twice on the ovals, but it's good to see the car beginning to work on the track now. And Little Al is beginning to hound Michael Andretti for that 5th position. Alonso Jr. did a great job in second qualifying yesterday. He was the fastest in his group, which was the slower group, but nonetheless it was an impressive performance from him. Not always a great qualifier, but always a great racer. And he really does look as though he has a chance here. There's the lead. Zanardi to Paul Tracy. And what a change and what a fresh air, breath of fresh air it is to see Paul Tracy running in second place.
He's had so much bad luck this year, he really has. I know he was put on probation for an incident at Detroit, which certainly was his fault. It was a relatively minor incident, I thought, and he had a much bigger incident actually in qualifying in Portland, which earned him a suspension from the second qualifying session in Portland. But and then of course he was taken out in the race for that first corner accident. And all sorts of things have been going wrong for him. This weekend he gets through the first corner cleanly, and here he is. He's taken advantage of a couple of slips by Jimmy Vassar up into second place and maintaining that gap just a little bit over 2 seconds to Jimmy Vassar. Early stage of the race, Paul Tracy settling into a nice little rhythm here, looking good.
Yes, indeed. He's down in 13th place in the championship, but it was a surprise to see him so far down. Meanwhile, look at this. Good battle going on between the two Team Ray Hall teammates, Brian Herter and Gilles. In fact, sorry, it's Gilles de Ferran. Yes, it's not Bobby Rahal, it's Gilles de Ferran. And he has just got past Christian Fittipaldi by the looks of things. Herter's running 8th, and Gilles de Ferran, who we ride with now, is now into 9th position, we think. We'll check that as they come past us this time. There's a good battle going on there. And of course, remember that Gilles de Ferran has led more laps in each of the last 3 races than anyone else. Now, in fact, they're just going past us, and I can see Fittipaldi is actually ahead of these two. So this is, in fact, the battle for 9th place. Brian Herter in the black and white Shell-sponsored car, and Gilles de Ferran right behind him in the Valvoline machine. De Ferran also on the Goodyear tyre with a great record here. A winner here in 1996. Let's see what he can do.
Did all sorts of shuffling back there. Right behind Brian Herter was his teammate Bobby Rahal, but a couple of laps ago he fell back 3 positions, so he's back to 12th now. And in fact, also a little bit just ahead of these guys, Michael Andretti has been passed by Alonso Jr. So all sorts of shuffling going on here. It's a great racing. We only had, what, 16 laps. We're on lap 17, and there they go into this east end of the racetrack here. Turn 7 there, now into turn 8, and onto the straightaway that brings them back towards the start-finish line. Look, great shot there from that camera on that wall.
Just caught a quick glimpse of Mark Blundell at the back of the next pack, so ahead of Christian Fittipaldi. Blundell's running in 7th, and this is the strongest showing really from the PacWest team so far this year. Guterman qualified pretty well, but he's down in 16th position. Didn't get away well at the start, got caught out a little bit. So Maurizio's down there in 16th. He's been passed by Tony Kanaan, who's still moving his way up the field pretty well. He's in 15th. You're looking at the speeds across the line, and notice that although Unser got ahead of Andretti on the last lap, and there you can see the two of them together, just behind Jimmy Vassar. There's Unser, there's Andretti. That Andretti was actually fastest across the start-finish line on that last lap. So there's not much to choose between these two. And Jimmy Vassar, Alonso Jr., Michael Andretti, all of them together, all former champions, and all involved in this battle for 5th place.
Yeah, and the tyres here are the issue on this car, of course, on Michael Andretti's car are the Goodyear tyres. Ahead of Alonso Jr., also on Goodyear tyres. The 4 cars in front of them, that's in order, Zanardi, Tracy, Franchitti and Vassar, are all on Firestones.
So up front, Zanardi's advantage is some 4.0 seconds. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, as we were talking about, this race is going to be critical on fuel. They're going to have to watch their fuel mileage very carefully. To try and make it through on just 2 stops, they're going to have to turn the wick down, run on a leaner fuel mixture. And if they're going to run 3 stops, obviously they've got the chance then to turn the wick up a bit, run it more rich, but that means that they're going to have to spend time in the pit lane. Watching at the moment Jimmy Vassar and Alonso Jr., it seems to be a pretty hard-fought race. I shouldn't think fuel consumption worries, well, they will be thinking about it, even at this early stage. 18 laps completed, it's going to be around lap 28, around lap 30, before we really see them making their stops, unless there's a problem somewhere.
Yeah, and in which case, of course, they will have to make 3 pit stops. If they come in on lap 30, we've got a 100-lap race. They come in again on lap 60. They have to come in with 10 laps to get somebody on the grass there. I think that must have been... So Zanardi, actually. I don't know. No, here comes Zanardi right now in front of us. He's pulling away. His lead last time around was 4.4 seconds. He's pulling away about 4/10 a lap over Paul Tracy, and really looking strong. Here is this great battle over Paul Tracy. There goes Alonso to the inside.
Alonso Jr. looking to try and take fourth away from Jimmy Vasser, but it doesn't quite work on this occasion, and he's got to keep an eye on his mirrors, because if he loses a bit of momentum, you can bet that Michael Andretti will slip through. And watch out for Mark Blundell, because he's on the back of this group as well, just keeping an eye on things, not ready to challenge, but it's good to see that the car is back on the pace and that he can run with these front runners after what has been such a difficult start to the season. The man who won in Portland and he won in Toronto last year, and of course at the end of the season in Fontana, Blundell's been a long way from the podium this year. On board again with Michael Andretti as he continues that chase of Al Unser Jr. One point to perhaps just quickly mention is that the top four cars are all Honda powered. Seems to be going well for them here.
Yeah, Honda, Reynard and Faster, and of course that is the combination to have. It has been all season. It has really been for the last couple of years, certainly. 1, 2, 3 Honda was last year in the championship, and Target Chip Ganassi Racing, of course, they won the championship 2 years running. That is the combination to beat. But here's Unser again, look at the inside. This time he goes through.
Yes, he's on the inside. Now can Vasser cut back? No, he can't. Vasser lost a bit of speed there as he came into the apex. Again, perhaps the gear changing is going to cost him time. So Al Unser Jr., what a great drive we're seeing from him already. He's now in fourth position. Remember, he started down in 9th place on the grid. A great opening lap, as we've seen from him in the past. Careful, but picking off places where he can now, and that's put him into fourth.
Great effort by Marlboro Team Penske here. They've really worked so hard on that car. I was speaking to Nigel Beresford yesterday, technical director of Team Penske, and he and the people back in Poole, England, I'm sure they're watching this on Eurosport, but they have worked so hard to make this car a proper contender, and it now seems to be completely on the pace.
Back with Michael Andretti, though, to watch out for him, because he's now attacking Jimmy Vasser. That's the Vasser car right ahead of you. Now, is he going to get a run? This is where we've seen most of the overtaking take place, down into turn 1. Is Michael going to go for the inside? He had to think about it and then decides against it. He's not going to take too many risks with Jimmy Vasser. He knows Vasser's a hard racer, and Michael's had his fair share of incident this year, so perhaps this time he's just going to be a bit more cautious. Watch out for Unser! Oh, he nearly got past Frank Hiddie there for third place. These two have had it coming together in the past, just over a year ago in Portland. They've had a few moments on track as well. Apart from that, Unser very, very nearly got up the inside into turn number 3, but Dario was just able to shut the door in time. So it remains Zanardi, our race leader, Tracy in second place, Dario Franchitti in third, and now being chased by the red and white Penske of Al Unser Jr. Then you can see Michael Andretti, who has got ahead of Vasser. Vasser's down another position, Andretti's 5th, and Vasser's 6th, with Mark Blundell now chasing him.
Yeah, he's looking there. He looks to the inside. Don't think I'll make a move there into turn 9. But meanwhile, Alex Zanardi is just disappearing at the front of this field. Phenomenal. His last 2 laps have been under 1 minute. Those are the first laps under 1 minute. And actually, Al Unser Jr. also under a minute there, so he's looking good. He is so racy this afternoon. He is fired up, and it's great to see.
It is good to see, isn't it? Look at Christian Fittipaldi as well in the other black car there. Same colours, of course, as Michael Andretti, the second Newman Haas Swift, but with the very easily identifiable Dago yellow crash helmet. Fittipaldi's running well here, and he's now in 8th place, but more importantly, he's closed up to this battle ahead of him.
Yes, he has indeed. There you can see those cars there, 6th, 7th and 8th. That is Mark Blundell there in the blue and red car. Ahead of him is Jimmy Vasser.
So Zanardi, our race leader, with 22 laps completed here. Tracy in second position by 7.1 seconds. And look at this now. You can see that Zanardi's way out of picture. There's Tracy bearing down on us. Franchitti behind him, and then Al Unser Jr. in 4th place. Now Franchitti, is he going to have to challenge Tracy in order to prevent Unser coming past? He might have been quite happy to sit behind Tracy, but now he's really coming under attack from these two experienced American racers, both former champions and both winners here. Jr. just keeps the pressure on Franchitti. Doesn't make a move this time, but just keeps the pressure on. And that is critical here. Because of the way this track is so bumpy between the various sections, it's very easy to pressurize a driver into a mistake. Perhaps easier here than it is on some tracks, because, as Dario was saying, if you just hit these bumps a little bit differently on a fractionally different line, it throws the car off completely.
It certainly does. If you try to defend the position too radically, then somebody else is going to get a run at you on the exit. So you've got to be smooth all the way around on this racetrack. There's plenty of space here. It's a wide open racetrack, but you still have to be very, very precise to make the most out of the car.
Now then, here comes the battle for third place. Tracy's got away a little bit. Franchitti in fourth, or in third place rather, looking to defend that position from Alonso Jr. Jr. had a little look down the inside. Look at that, he really gets a good line out of turn one. Looks as though they got good traction with that Penske. Didn't slither around as he put the power down. And now look, he's right behind Franchitti again. That was exactly where he put in a charge to get past Franchitti just a few laps ago.
Fascinating battle. It's certainly interesting to see that Michael Andretti was very quickly able to close up on Alonso Jr. after losing half a second or so when he was stuck behind Jimmy Vasser. Probably a little bit more than that, a second or so, and he was able to close that gap up onto the back of the Penske, and both of these guys looking very strong indeed.
So Zanardi leads, 24 laps completed, Tracy in second, Franchitti in third, defending from Alonso Jr., Michael Andretti fifth, Mark Blundell in sixth place. Join us as the first pit stops are being made, and the reason they're being made now as Alex Zanardi comes in, our race leader, is that there's been an incident out on the racetrack and it's opened up the pits. It's pretty good timing in terms of making a pit stop. Lap number 26 here. So Alex Zanardi, our race leader, he was leading by some 7 seconds before they made this stop. In fact, it was up to 9 seconds before they came in. There is Paul Tracy, who came in second position. The fuel going aboard, gets it out cleanly. What about Franchitti? He gets out, don't stall it this. Oh, Unser and Tracy! Is it Unser and Tracy? I think it's Tracy rather than Franchitti. He's already come out. Unser's facing the wrong way in the pit lane.
And look, they couldn't have a wider pit lane here. I mean, this is the widest pit lane we have in this series, and they managed to get together. Some of the other racetracks we have, the pit lanes are horribly narrow, but here there's plenty of room, and they still managed to come together. Tragedy for Alonso Jr.
It's incredible. I mean, Alonso Jr., there he is sitting down at the end. He can do nothing. The engine is stalled. He cannot get it going on his own again, and it was an incident between him and Paul Tracy. Now, they are allowed to race in the pit lane. They might be under yellow conditions. Look at this. Tracy came out so wide, so wide. There was nowhere for little Al to go, and then Tracy came back at him again. Well, what was going on?
That was an appalling move by Paul Tracy. I cannot imagine what he was thinking there. I mean, yeah, that was just an insane maneuver by Paul Tracy. I mean, the guy's already on probation. He's going to get himself in very serious trouble. The car was sliding coming out of the pit lane, but I mean, there's plenty of room there. There's, what, 10 car widths wide, and he just tried to block out Alonso Jr. He's trying to push Unser onto the grass, and then he makes contact with Unser. That is just incredible.
Yeah, and looked absolutely outrageous from that picture. We'll get another view of it, I'm sure. But Paul Tracy, he was just out of the pits. Remember, there's a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit in the pits, but they are allowed to race. And of course, Tracy was just coming out of his pit box. Alonso Jr. had some momentum up already. He's further up at the pit lane. He was already at 60 miles an hour on the speed limiter, and he was alongside Tracy as Tracy just seemed to drive into him. Well, I have to say, with Tracy being on probation, what are his chances for racing at all in the next round of the championship after that incident? At the moment, as they come round behind the pace car, it's Zanardi who leads, but behind him, all sorts of changing around. Let's just see as they go across the line how it reads officially. Zanardi completing 28 laps. It's being shown that Ribeiro's second because he's not come into the pits. Remember, Ribeiro made an earlier stop. Tracy is in third. He has survived to be out in third. Andretti fourth. They made a good stop for Newman Haas. Franchitti down to fifth. Gilles de Ferran up to sixth. Great stop for Walker Racing. Christian Fittipaldi seventh. Mark Blundell, not such a good stop, I'm afraid. He's down to eighth. Jimmy Vasser, not a particularly good stop for him. He's ninth. Then it's Brian Herter in 10th place. Take a breath time. Wow. I mean, it's all going on here in Cleveland at the moment. But for Alex Zanardi, things are going pretty much according to plan if he can stay out of all the chaos that's going on behind him. Leader Alex Zanardi, all sorts of fun and games being going on behind him. The incident that caused the caution flag that we're under at the moment involved Maurizio Guterman and Patrick Carpentier. But let's now hear from Roger Penske down in the pits with Gary Gerald.
Al Unser Jr. with one of his most spirited drives in some time, and now he has to start all over again. Roger Penske, I know you're not happy about this incident.
Well, when I looked at it on the monitor, we were clearly by Tracy at least a half a car length. He turned right into Al, which there's no excuse for that. It's unfortunate. We're having a good day, but we got a long way to go, so we got to keep going here.
So what do you do at this point? Have you appealed to officials for any kind of punitive action?
We asked the officials to take a look at it and see where we are.
And what are you telling Al? Because I know he's not happy on that radio.
Tell Al to stay cool. We got a long way to go.
How about the tires?
Tires look good.
Yeah, he's putting a positive spin on a situation right now that is not nearly as positive, I think, as Roger's making it sound.
The pace car's in. We're going racing again. The green flag is back out, and Alex Zanardi takes the green flag. It's Ribeiro. Remember, Andre Ribeiro in second. Look at the battle for third as Paul Tracy gets past.
And further back, the other Newman Haskell goes past the other team, green car. And on the exit, Franchitti has been overtaken by Michael Andretti. So all sorts of stuff going on here. This is great side-by-side racing once again. And the two Newman Haskell's and the two Team Green cars both side-by-side together. Tremendous stuff. And now he's got a great run off that corner. Did Michael Andretti looking to the inside of Andre Ribeiro? No.
Doesn't quite work. It was Gilles de Ferran who was the other one who got past Franchitti. So Gilles de Ferran's made an excellent restart. So it all changed again, except for Zanardi. There in second place, Andre Ribeiro, who made an earlier pit stop on a different strategy to the others now. Michael Andretti, here he is in third place. So this is a great storming drive from Michael Andretti. He'll be quite relieved to have seen the problems for Alonso Jr., of course. And Alonso Jr. is down now, of course, right at the back of the field in 19th position as a result of that incident with Paul Tracy. So Paul Tracy is now in fourth place. Christian Fittipaldi is in fifth position. And then behind Fittipaldi, it's Gilles de Ferran, as Michael Andretti gets very close to the back of the Penske ahead of him. Gilles de Ferran sixth, Franchitti seventh, Blundell is in eighth, then Vassar ninth, Herta 10th, followed by Pruitt, Ray Hall, Richie Hearn, Adrian Fernandez, and Max Papis. But Alonso Jr., in fact, already up to 16th on this last lap. So watch out for little Al, a racer if ever there was one, and he's trying to make up some of that lost ground. Back on board with Michael Andretti. Let's just cool things down for a moment. Let's just focus on the job here that Michael Andretti is trying to do. That's to close the gap up to Andre Ribeiro, and we get a good chance to watch the behavior of that car ahead as well.
Yeah, and of course, Andre Ribeiro, he was running at the back of the pack earlier on. He was back in, where was it, before the yellow, he was in 19th place, but stuck behind a train of cars. But he has the same equipment, of course, as Alonso Jr., and it's just he started way back there because he had all sorts of problems throughout qualifying. He had a fuel pressure problem in his engine blow-up yesterday afternoon, all sorts of problems, but he has a fast car, as we see there. There he is closing up on the race leader, Alex Zanardi, and the braking for turn one.
Yeah, this is the view just briefly there from Alex Zanardi. Last lap, a 60.4 from Zanardi and a 60.4 from Ribeiro. Zanardi's not getting away after this restart. Tyres are a bit more worn now, and the Goodyear tyres on the Penske and the whole Penske machine really working well as Ribeiro holds on to second position. Andretti then in third place, just about half a second behind Ribeiro, and then Paul Tracy, Christian Fittipaldi, Gilles de Ferran and Dario Franchitti are top 7 places. So for Zanardi, things not quite so easy to pull away as perhaps in the early stage. Let's just sit back a moment and watch and listen to this. Great shots from onboard Alex Zanardi. That was through the chicane as they head down towards the start-finish line now. This is into turn number 1, and Ribeiro continues to apply the pressure. And look behind, there's Christian Fittipaldi in the black car. There is Gilles de Ferran as well, former winner on this track and a leader on the line in the last 3 years. He's led races here as we now ride on board with Gilles de Ferran chasing after Christian Fittipaldi. The top end of the circuit now, the east end of the track, up through turns 5, 6 and then 7, and Gilles was telling me yesterday this is all very, very careful on throttle and brakes, a little bit of left foot braking just to balance the car up through there, not much more than that. Now the blast building up to a speed of 180 miles an hour as they come down here. Some pretty impressive lap times being done by the leaders.
Very impressive indeed. Andre Ribeiro is sticking like glue to Alex Zanardi. Even looks there to there was a feint to the inside. He wasn't really trying to pass him, but certainly Alex Zanardi knows that this Penske is behind him, and Andre Ribeiro is flying along now. He's really going well, and it's good to see. He's had so much bad luck this season, and you know, funnily enough, this was this race last year turned around his season as well. Last year, of course, he drove for Tasman Motorsports. They had the Lola chassis, which really wasn't working at all. For this race last year, he switched to a Reynard and was fast. He didn't have a particularly good race. He made a few mistakes, but certainly that was what turned his season around. He had some good runs thereafter, and here he is right now, chasing after Alex Zanardi and really looking strong.
Yes, perhaps those results towards the latter part of last season in the Reynard were what encouraged Roger Penske to sign him up to join the team for this year. And of course, remember, he's replaced Paul Tracy at Penske, and Roger Penske pretty angry with the antics of Paul Tracy, as we've seen already after that incident involving Alonso Jr. But just look at this battle between the top two, Alex Zanardi versus Andre Ribeiro. Zanardi's last lap time there, a 59.543, but almost matched to the 10th of the second by Andre Ribeiro. He's just done a 59.6, and so was Michael Andretti, a 59.603. Paul Tracy just in the 1 minute bracket, followed by Christian Fittipaldi, about the same sort of lap time. These leaders beginning, the top three just pulling away from Paul Tracy in 4th position at the moment. So he's got quite a way to go. Now, of course, remember that Ribeiro made a very early stop, and it's not going to be too much longer now before Andre has to make a stop. He can go a bit further yet. It was, I think it was after about 4 or 5 laps he made his stop.
He actually made 2 stops. He came in on lap 10 was the last time, so he should be able to do another probably 5 or 10 laps before he has to come in to make a pit stop, I would say, and he's going to make every advantage he can out of those laps. Coming up, there's a slower car. There's Alex Barron, I think has had a spin a lap or 2 ago, and here are the leaders now closing up onto the back of the All-American Racers car. There's
our graphic just showing you the situation for Ribeiro, how he is approaching his fuel window. But don't necessarily think that this means that he's not a major player in this race. He is. He's just on a different strategy, that's all. And it could work out perfectly for the Penske there. It was a little bit tight as he went up through turn number 3. But it could well fall into his hands, depending how the rest of this race pans out. We know that it's going to be tight on 2 stops. He's going to have to make an extra stop, but so is everyone else.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way they're going to be able to get through on just 1 more pit stop. I think everybody's going to have to make 2 more pit stops, so they're all really in the same boat here. Certainly he has had his splash and go at the beginning of the race. This is Ribeiro. Dennis Vitolo off the road for the 2nd time.
He's actually going pretty slowly, Jeremy. As he came past our commentary position, I just noticed he was dawdling along very slowly indeed. I don't quite... he's driven onto the grass and he's driven back off it again. So quite what he's doing there, I don't know. And he's got to watch out because the leaders are going to come up to him any moment. I can see him going up the backstretch, up into turn number 3. He's going ever so slowly. And I just hope that he's not going to get in the way of these 2 leaders who are catching up to him fairly quickly. Hopefully, though, there'll be plenty of space. Nice wide track here as Alex Zanardi just stays in front of Andre Ribeiro. Lap number 40 at the moment, 39 laps completed, and Zanardi still with this tiny advantage over Andre Ribeiro, who's driving absolutely brilliantly here and just staying with the championship leader, showing that this Penske car really can work in race conditions. Perhaps they haven't got a handle on it in qualifying, but in race conditions it really looks good. Now, we've just heard a very interesting piece of news. Paul Tracy has been given the black flag, and there's no great surprise in that. It's because of the incident involving Alonso Jr., and it sounds as though he's going to have to make a stop penalty for 10 seconds and then be allowed back out again.
Yeah, unjustifiable risk apparently is the call there by Chief Steward Wally Dallenbach, and normally when you get a penalty for a regular infraction, you have a drive-through penalty. Just come into the pits, have to keep to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, but just drive through the pits and go on again. Paul Tracy, however, he's going to put in the penalty box for an extra 10 seconds, so that'll cost him a lot of ground.
There is Tracy. He's running in 4th place at the moment, and with Fittipaldi in 5th, De Ferran in 6th, and Franchitti in 7th place. But obviously he's going to drop Paul Tracy well out of the top 10, in fact right down to the back of the pack.
Yeah, that's him out of contention probably for the day, unless there's any caution, of course, unless he has a particularly strong drive back up to the pack. But talking of strong drives, these leaders are really flying. 59.4 the last lap around for Zanardi and Andre Ribeiro, and they are really upping the pace here now. They're getting faster and faster. We have 41 laps in the books as they flash across the start-finish line. There, though, it's a battle for 4th place, and that is Dario Franchitti, the back of that train of 4 cars. Paul Tracy, Christian Fittipaldi. There is the black flag, and there is right behind him is Gilles de Ferran, and there now Fittipaldi looks to make a move on Paul Tracy. He won't have to. Next time around, I think we'll see Tracy into the pit lane. Let's hope this time there's no shenanigans.
That's right. Well, Tracy couldn't really miss that one, can you? There's a very clear run into that first corner, very clear view of the start stand where the flags are given. And, of course, he'll be told on the radio that he must make his stop on this lap. Race control, apparently, though, say that they black flagged him last time. We didn't see that on our screens, but they say they black flagged in the previous lap and he didn't come in. So he's going to get himself into even more trouble here.
Speechless, frankly, Ben. It's astonishing. I know Barry Green will have been on. He'll have been arguing the toss on that call, trying to get the call rescinded, perhaps. That's his job as a team manager, team owner, but I don't think it's going to happen.
He is in now. Look, he just disappeared out of view. That's because he goes the other side of the cones that lead them into the pit lane. So Paul Tracy is in to make his 10-second stop and go penalty. And look at the signals being given from the crowd in front of us in the grandstand. He's getting thumbs down from a lot of people in the grandstand here. Amazing to see that. I've never seen anything quite like that before. He is really, really not popular here today.
That's very polite of you, I'd say, Ben. I think that was the best of the signals he was getting from here from the grandstand. Not at all happy. Unser Jr., he's a big favourite all around the country. And Paul Tracy he's not from far away here. Cleveland, just the other side of the lake and up a bit on Lake Ontario, of course. But very much Unser Jr. is a fan favourite here. Paul Tracy, he's very much the bad guy this afternoon.
Well, let me tell you where Alonso Jr. is. He's actually, look at Ribeiro, by the way. Ribero's got to make his stop now. He's just on target to make his stop. We're on lap number 42. So he's done something like 32 laps on that tank of fuel. So that's a pretty good run from Ribeiro, especially at that high pace as well. Very impressive performance. So this is a scheduled fuel and tyre stop for Andre Ribeiro. This will, of course, drop him down the order. But remember, it'll all turn around again once everybody else makes their stops. They're all on a similar strategy. Out comes Ribeiro then. Clean stop from the Penske team. One of the best teams in the pit lane for that sort of work. And Ribeiro gets away very, very cleanly indeed. Rejoins the track and just checking to see where he comes up on our screen. We'll check that round. He's in 15th place as he joins on there. There is Robbie Gordon just joining, coming around that turn one. Ribeiro gets past him, so that actually puts him in 16th position. So Ribeiro rejoins in 16th place. It means Zanardi now has a little bit of a respite, I suppose. He's got a 3.5 second lead over Michael Andretti. But that, of course, may all change as Ribeiro gets into his swing and everybody else makes their stops. Look at Gordon. He goes past on his nicely warmed up tyres, and Ribeiro sensibly doesn't fight against it. Really, he's got to get the tyre temperature up first, and the Goodyear tyres perhaps just taking a lap or two. You can see the back end of the car sliding around quite a lot, and that's because of the cold tyres. It will take him a lap or so to get decent tyre temperature. They're just flashing through the picture with Patrick Carpentier. He was involved in an incident earlier, but he is still out there. He's in 16th position. And if you've only just joined us, let me tell you that we've lost Greg Moore from this race. He went out in an accident earlier on when he spun and got hit by JJ Leto, by Michel Jourdain Jr. and by Helio Castroneves. In fact, all four of them are therefore out of this race already. Alex Zanardi has led pretty much from the beginning. Jimmy Vasser was our early race leader, but then he has suffered some gearbox problems, and Vasser is down in 11th place at the moment. And the other car we're keeping an eye on is this one, Alonso Jr. He was up into 4th place earlier on in this race, and in fact got up into 3rd place before the pit stops, but then he was hit by Paul Tracy as they came out of the pit, and Unser finds himself up into 10th place now, so he really is making progress.
Yeah, just past Jimmy Vasser, and really getting a move on here. Next in his sights will be Bobby Rahal, and he's got plenty of fight. There's about a 100-yard gap between himself and Bobby Rahal. I fancy that gap is going to come down pretty sharply.
Yes, and let's keep an eye on his lap times as well. A 59.5 from Alonso Jr. Bettered by only one driver on that last lap, and that was Michael Andretti, who's done a 59.372. So Michael Andretti going well. He's just 3.5 seconds, as I say, behind Alex Zanardi. Zanardi in the lead, Michael Andretti, there he is, in 2nd position. That last lap, the fastest of everybody, 59.372, and now he continues this chase of the Italian up front. Goodyear tyres versus Firestone tyres. But remember, Firestone really have had the benefit of the best results this year. All the pole positions have gone Firestone's way. Most of the race victories, not all. Of course, Michael won the opening race of the championship at Homestead. Let's just concentrate on this on-board picture for a moment. right out to the wall. Watch how close they get on the outside. And now they're back down the longest straight, building up into 6th gear and 180 miles an hour. And that's Michael Andretti at work in the office, trying to close up the gap to race leader Alex Zanardi.
Isn't that wonderful? Tremendous to watch. I just love being on board with these drivers around, particularly around this sort of a race track. You can clearly see the drivers have to work pretty hard. You can see the car. There he is, locking up that inside right front brake, under braking there, but gets back on the power, comes down the corner pretty smoothly, and up through the gears again. This sequential shift pattern, you see him just pulling back there on the lever. Second gear as it comes out, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. Down a couple there for turn 3 and 4, and tremendous onboard cameras on this CART Texaco, Haviland, Swift, Ford, Cosworth and Goodyear tyres, of course.
And there's the view from another onboard camera, but this is with race leader Alex Zanardi. The yellow car you're looking at, don't worry about him in terms of position, because that is Arndt Meyer in the Lola, and Meyer at the moment is running in 21st position, running reasonably well at the moment.
He actually had a stop and go penalty after his first round of pit stops, which is why he's so far back. That's why he fell way back from the pack. Before that he'd been running moderately well.
On board now with Richie Hearn. He's down in 13th position. His nearest opponent is Adrian Fernandez, but Fernandez is about 3 seconds up the road from Richie. This, of course, another Swift chassis, same kind of chassis that Michael Andretti and Christian Fittipaldi are driving, but this one is on Firestone tyres, and we've seen some great results from Richie, qualifying 4th in Detroit, some solid performances, Detroit and Rio for that matter. Here at Cleveland it doesn't seem to be going quite so well, and look, he's come into the pits as Hearn comes in. Papis we saw would go him past, and Richie Hearn decides to make a stop on lap number 49. Looks as though it should be a normal scheduled stop, although it's a little shake of the head there from Richie.
What is it, the valve?
Yeah.
Oh, stay in there.
Listening to the radio there, and he's asking what the problem is. They're obviously getting a telemetry reading that there's something wrong with the engine.
Yeah, is it a valve? I think Richie asked there of the race engineer, Steve Conover, and certainly seems to be an engine problem of some sort for Richie Hearn. Shame.
On board with Bobby Rahal now with this low-mounted camera on the nose cone of his car. Bobby's running in 9th position, and his car next up on the road is Mark Blundell.
Bobby Rahal now is Alanson Jr., who's trying to make a run on him as we're coming up down towards turn 1 now. Unser Jr. looking to the inside, but there goes Rahal to take the apex there, so no move that time for Alanson Jr.
Again, you can listen and hear those gear changes, the engine working hard, revving up to about 15,000 revs per minute, perhaps even a little more. People are saying the Honda engine revving even more than 15,000 revs per minute, and that's where the red line is set. Of course, there's a rev limiter to stop them over-revving as they accelerate up through the gears. Doesn't stop them over-revving on the down change. Let's hear now from Paul Tracy's team owner Barry Green.
I mean, everyone's got the same responsibility in the pit lane. There's hundreds of cars around. Al Jr. should get the same penalty if there's a penalty. Al Jr.'s responsibility is to back off as well. You know, these chief stewards, I don't know where they're going. They need to free focus on what this is all about. There's cars all around him. Paul did a great job. Needs to be 2 penalties if there's any penalty.
Is there any recourse for you in the course of this race now?
We've just got to stay focused here. We're still in the race. We'll get a yellow. We'll get back up there. We've got Dario up there doing real well. So we just got to get focused, get back to business.
Guys, I don't know that I have ever seen that much emotion in the heat of one of these competitions from Barry Green.
Yeah, very defensive Barry Green, and certainly going on the offensive perhaps as a result of that incident.
Well, I can only presume that Barry hasn't yet seen the replay of that on the television, because I think when he does, he'll see that Paul Tracy literally drove towards the outside of the track and left Unser no room at all.
There is Bobby Rahal, and there behind him Al Unser Jr. as he holds on to 10th place at the moment, desperately trying to make up for that lost ground. A great shame, because Al Unser Jr. was running right up front of this race until the incident between himself and Paul Tracy. Now, from this onboard camera, of course, we can't see whether Al Unser Jr. is lining up Bobby Rahal for a pass. It is quite possible. Both are winners here on this Burke Lakefront track. It is a very popular track with the drivers, and the group you're looking at the moment, headed by Brian Herter, he's in 6th position. Scott Pruitt then is in 7th place in the Vistion car, and suitably enough we go aboard Scott Pruitt. There we are, 7th place for him, and you're looking back at the nose cone of Mark Blundell. He must be so relieved to be able to run in company with these other top 10 drivers. He's had such a tough season this year, and the only results he's picked up are really by staying in the race. The car's been uncompetitive here at Cleveland. It does look as though Pac West have found the answer. And Mark himself was telling us yesterday, most of the answer seems to come in the shock absorbers. It looks as though the damper program that Pac West had, they're building their own dampers. It seemed to go astray somewhere along the line. They've switched dampers. They're now using the Öhlins units that are used by many of the other teams, and suddenly they seem to have turned the performance around.
Certainly do. Not before time as well. Great relief from that team to find the car back on the pace after a test at Sebring. Actually, look out the window here and see Tony Kanaan recovering after a spin in turn 3, so that'll drop him out of 15th place. But certainly these, Alan McDonald is the technical director of the Pac West Racing Group, formerly an engineer in Formula 1, and he said last year, our shock program, he said, was a cornerstone of our success, and certainly Pac West was the team to beat at the end of last year, and they really don't understand why their damping system just wasn't on the pace this season. But that switch, as you say, to the Öhlins has made all the difference.
So that battle continues. It's for 6th place with Brian Herter heading the little pack there at the moment. Scott Pruitt doing a fine job in the silver car, the Vision machine in 7th, Mark Blundell in 8th. We've just seen Tony Kanaan have a spin, as you mentioned, Jeremy, a moment ago. It was very harmless, and he's just come into the pits, just to let everyone know, so that will drop him down the order somewhat. As we look back towards that group, there it is, Brian Herter holding on to 6th place. Mark Blundell looking to make a pass on Scott Pruitt, but deciding that there is not quite the ideal opportunity through turns 9 and 10, which still taking it over 100 miles an hour. It looks like a tight chicane, but it's still a very quick corner. And there at the back of the group still, Al Unser Jr. seems to have got a bit held up in his charge up through the field now, but of course he's coming up against faster cars and very capable drivers in terms of blocking any access for a little space for Unser to go through. So he stays behind Rahal.
Yeah, behind them is Tony Kanaan, who is now on fresh tyres. I think perhaps his tyres will begin to lose their effectiveness. That's why he had that spin. Comes in, fresh tank of fuel and fresh tyres. So he'll have to make one more stop. Not a bad call there by Steve Horn and Diane Hall, of course, the engineer for Tony Kanaan. He will now equalise that stop. So rather than come in for a splash and go at the end, he's on a different strategy and try and run 2 stints of around the same sort of length.
So Alex Zanardi still leads after 54 laps have been completed. Pits, and he'd coasted into the pit lane. Now we're wondering whether he could have run out of fuel, but it seems a little strange for him to have done that. This is what happened. Gilles came into the pit lane, and look how slowly he was going. But behind him, Al Unser Jr. chose this precise time to come into the pits as well, which is a bit of bad news because he got held up by Gilles de Ferran coasting into the pits. That was just bad luck. It didn't cost Al Unser Jr. too much time. But Jeremy, you reckon that Al Unser Jr.'s stop right now might be more down to tactics than anything else?
I do. I think at that stage in the race, he was pretty much caught up behind that train of cars there. And here was Michael Andretti coming into the pits for his second stop. This is lap 57 for Michael Andretti. So, but back to the strategy here. I think they're just trying to equalise the amount of time that they make between these pits. So rather than making a splash and go at the end, if they stop now, then they can come in and have fresher tyres, come in again maybe 20 laps ago, and again not use up the tyres too much.
You just hear the hold it sound on the radio as they told Michael to wait. Jimmy Vasser's just come into the pits as well. All of this leaves Alex Zanardi still leading, remember, no change up front. Zanardi waiting a little longer before he makes his stop, but I can see several others coming in now, including Mark Blundell's just come into the pits, and 1 or 2 others, as Michael Andretti rejoins the track with Tony Kanaan right beside him. So Michael back on track, a pretty clean 12.2 second stop for Andretti. And Zanardi, we still wait for Zanardi to come back into the pits. Meanwhile, this will all, of course, promote Andre Ribeiro. And Ribeiro, who's made his second stop, he made that a little while ago. He's clambering back up the order. He's now in 7th position. A little battle going on there between Kanaan and Andretti. Kanaan on those warm tyres has managed to get back past Andretti. Meanwhile, Christian Fittipaldi also into the pits. Now, it sounds as though Jimmy Vasser's had a problem with his refuelling, so he's having a tough time this weekend, isn't he? The pole sitter doesn't seem to be having the luck on race day. Christian Fittipaldi in. Now, this should be a similar stop, hopefully, to Michael Andretti. But he will, remember, have to make one more stop if everything goes according to plan. Gets away quite cleanly, keeps it quite close over to one side of the track. Now the pit lane gets on the power off the speed limit button. It looks to me as though Alex Zanardi is going to be coming in this time. Here he comes, race leader. And going going past us, Ribeiro going very slowly, by the way, but let's concentrate on Alex Zanardi coming into the pits, our race leader, with quite an advantage as he came in, but of course that is largely because Michael Andretti has already made his stop.
Yeah, and here he is now pulling into the pits, and there is Rob Hill and Co going to work. 4 fresh, fast-turned tyres. They've been running awfully consistent. 59s all the way through that season, even a couple of 58s there towards the end. The fuel is almost finished now. The tyres were changed well a long time ago. There goes Alex Zanardi back into the race and still in the lead.
Yeah, it was a 1/10 of a second slower than Michael Andretti's stop, but it was very, very good nonetheless. And he rejoins just as Christian comes out of turn 8. That's a different part of the track. There is on board with Michael Andretti, and Michael only just coming down there into turn number 1. So Zanardi has got ahead of Andretti quite comfortably, and now they can start to battle it out again with one more stop to go in this race. They're going on to lap 60 next time around. That will mean 40 laps to go. It's a 2-mile track, this one, remember, and plenty to play for here. Now, I mentioned just a moment ago, Jeremy, that I saw Ribeiro going slowly. He's just come into the pits. I wondered if we knew any more about his progress.
Yeah, he just come into the pits, as you say, and I think I wonder whether it was another problem there for Andre Ribeiro. Looking out of the window here, he's stopped. They're making the stop. They're changing tyres. They're putting fuel into the car. But I think there's something else amiss as well on that Marlboro Penske.
Michael Andretti out on track. There is Alex Zanardi. He's got Richie Hearn right behind him. It's a big gap between Zanardi and Andretti, though, isn't it? Look at that. You can see it's almost the length of that straight between Zanardi and Michael Andretti. We'll give you that in terms of seconds when they cross the line in just a moment. There goes Michael down towards turn 1. Zanardi already across the line. It's a 6.4 second advantage for Alex Zanardi. Things looking comfortable. Christian Fittipaldi in a fine 3rd, and Franchitti now in 4th. Still leads with 62 laps completed. Michael Andretti 2nd, Christian Fittipaldi 3rd, then 4th for Dario Franchitti. Then in 5th place, the car you're riding on board, Scott Pruitt lies 5th, and Alonso Jr. has come up to 6th place now. There he is in the mirror, effectively, or in our view from that onboard camera. Alonso Jr. in a fine 6th place. But let me tell you that Andre Ribeiro is in trouble. We've seen him going slowly, and he's been in the pits. Look at the highlights of this race so far. This is what happened at the start when Jimmy Vasser made the best getaway. Tony Kanaan got into trouble. But this is the accident that happened to Greg Moore. He lost it out of turn 8. He got hit by 3 other cars, Jourdain, Castroneves, and then bang from JJ Leto. And that was the end of Greg Moore's race. On the restart, we had a great little battle going on up front. Alex Zanardi getting past teammate Jimmy Vasser, who was struggling with his gear change. And then an incident in the pits which just defied belief when Paul Tracy seemed to drive into Alonso Jr., spinning Alonso Jr. around when Jr. had got himself up into 3rd position. Alonso Jr. has been fighting his way back up ever since then, but he is in that 6th place now, so you cannot count either of the Penske's out of this race. Alonso Jr., well, you can, I think, actually count Ribeiro, having said that, because we've seen him going quite slowly the last couple of laps. So Unser's going to have to uphold Penske honour. In 6th place, he's doing a fine job. Brian Herter is in 7th place. Looking at the list of cars that have gone out in this one so far, Robbie Gordon also out, Dennis Vitolo, and then the 4 cars that were involved in the accident with Greg Moore. For the moment, though, Zanardi is having an untroubled time up front. There's been a lot of talk about Alex Zanardi this weekend, Jeremy, in terms of where he might be driving next year.
Certainly the rumour is that he has signed for the Williams team to return to Formula One. Certainly denials from this side of the Atlantic Ocean. Alex Zanardi says, yes, I have talked with Williams, I have talked to several other teams about next year, but I've yet to make up my mind what I shall be doing. So no definitive word, but certainly very, very strong rumours from Silverstone that Alex Zanardi will be moving back to Formula One.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that story. It will no doubt develop over the next month or so when most of the driver changes, at least in Formula One, will be made, and that will have a knock-on effect over here. But Zanardi, who can of course command a very, very good salary over here in the United States, will be very anxious to make sure that he can get a good salary if he goes back to Formula One and get into a team that can potentially win races, if not next year, and perhaps the year after or the year after that. Alex Zanardi certainly has proved to be the class of the field over here over the last season or two. Very, very impressive drive here last year, and right now he's doing the job up front again. Michael Andretti is 4.6 seconds behind in 2nd place. Christian Fittipaldi is 17 17.9 seconds behind Zanardi now. Franchitti is just a second behind Fittipaldi, so Dario's still in with a shout at getting past the other Newman Haas Swift. Scott Pruitt in 5th, and then Al Unser Jr. still holding on to that 6th place, but the gap between Zanardi and Al Unser Jr. is 6th, some 26 seconds. Let's go aboard Michael Andretti once again.
That is one of the All-American Races cars, I think, in front of Michael Andretti. Lap cars already actually 2 laps down. I think that will be the car of PJ Jones, and no problem there for Michael Andretti. Sweeps past cleanly before the final turns 9 and turns 10. Out now onto the start-finish straight. This will be 66 laps in the books for Michael Andretti as he crosses the line there. This lap around was just over a minute, so he held up a little bit on that lap, and as was actually Alex Zanardi.
Yeah, 60.0 for Zanardi, 60.4 for Michael Andretti. Let's just sit back for a moment again and enjoy the onboard ride with Michael. Across from our commentary box, you can't see this on picture at the moment, but one of the Penske's has just gone off in front of us, and I think it's Ribeiro.
Yes, it is Ribeiro. He was actually back up to speed. At least it seemed to be. There is onto Ribeiro, car number 3, the Marlboro Penske, and going the wrong way at the moment. We're trying to get him turned around and trying not to do any damage to the underside of the car. Finds a clean spot on the racetrack, gets back onto the road, pulls over sensibly out of the way, let some other cars, faster cars go past on his right, and now tucked in again behind Max Pappas.
So Ribeiro there, you can see he has damaged that left front wing end plate, and no surprise really bumping across the grass doesn't do it much good. Of course they run that, oh look, and bits and pieces coming out. It's actually broken away now from that front fin, so let's hope that that doesn't get ingested by the side pods of some of the cars following around behind. That could cause some problems, but it obviously is turning into a bad day for Andre Ribeiro. Teammate Al Unser Jr. still in 6th place. There are the bits being hit by somebody or other as they come through turn number 1.
One of the cool cars, I think, there might have been, not quite sure which, could well have been the 27 car of Dario Franchitti, but see that damage there to the left front of Ribeiro's car, and the full course yellow is out.
Well, there's an interesting situation. Course yellow because of the debris on the track, presumably, and they feel that that's a bit dangerous for cars to be running over it. Tyres, that could cause problem. The pit lane's open and Alex Zanardi comes in. Now then, Jeremy, lap number 67?
67, 68.
Can they make it?
Yes, they can. They should be able to do 32 laps. A couple of laps of caution there will be. It'll be fairly marginal, but 30 laps should be no problem, and they will be able to go full throttle to the finish. And here is Alex Zanardi's stop. Of course, what he's been a master at this year is getting in and out of the pits, and on that first pit stop, he extended his margin by a couple of seconds over Michael Andretti, 8.9 seconds. A little bit quicker, of course, because he didn't need a full tank of fuel. He came in last on lap 43, so he only done 25 laps on that tank of fuel, so did not need a full tank, and that few seconds will save him on that pit stop.
Andre Ribeiro in now, and it looks as though that's pretty much the end of his race. They're not even bothering to change the nose cone. Of course, they have procedures for changing the nose cone rapidly. We see them practicing them over the weekend, often up at some ungodly hour to get their pit stop practice in, but they're not even bothering there, and the end of the day for Ribeiro. Everyone else making their pit stops, and this could of course see a bit of a shuffle in race order at the moment, as Christian Fittipaldi being shown as our race leader, but I think just about everyone will come in.
Yeah, except for Christian Fittipaldi. For some reason he did not come into the pits, and that is why he is now in the lead of this race. So that's an interesting piece of strategy by Newman Haas, and I wonder whether they're using him as the guinea pig to try and get in the way of Zanardi, so Andretti maybe can make a move. We'll see as this plays out.
But Zanardi is our clear leader at the moment. Are completed. Fittipaldi leads from Zanardi and Andretti. Still Fittipaldi not coming in. Interesting situation this, not to see Christian coming in as yet. I wonder if they will bring him in on this yellow or not. It seems very odd. Zanardi and Andretti meanwhile were charging around a bit to catch up with the pace car, and there is a splendid overhead view of the city of Cleveland. Here we are right on the edge of Lake Erie, and a city which has changed out of all recognition, I gather, Jeremy, from the early days when the race first came here back in 1982.
Certainly a lot of changes. The old Dockland area, now known as the Flats, very much the entertainment centre of northern Ohio. Some all sorts of fun party places down there, and a lot of the crews will perhaps be down there this evening if they don't have to catch a plane home. A lot of the crews actually drive up to this race. Many of them are based in Indianapolis, It's about a 5 or 6 hour drive away, but here we are, 70 laps in the books, and there is the rundown.
Yeah, Fittipaldi leader from Zanardi, Andretti, Franchitti in 4th, then Pruitt, Unser, Herta, Adrian Fernandez up to 8th, so good effort from them. De Ferrer 9th, then Ray Hall, Carpentier, Vassar struggling today. Blundell's dropped down to 13th with pit stop combinations which have not gone right. Papis 14th, and then Paul Tracy in 15th place. Then it's Tony Kanaan, Arndt Meyer, PJ Jones, Alex Barron and Mauricio Guterman all still running. Ribeiro is out. Hearn is still running, although he's 4 laps down. And then we're into the list of retirements. Robbie Gordon, Dennis Vitolo, Greg Moore, Michel Jourdain, Helio Castroneves and JJ Leto. That's our 28-car field, and that's what's been happening to them today. But Christian Fittipaldi leads them round at the moment. There are a few lapped cars between him and Alex Zanardi and Michael Andretti, who of course have been into the pits.
Yeah, so that's going to be very interesting at the restart. There's 3 lap cars. By my reckoning, it was Paul Tracy, Arndt Meyer and Richie Hearn between the race leader, Christian Fittipaldi, and the second place car of Alex Zanardi, on whom we are on board now, looking back at Michael Andretti in 3rd place. But as I say, that restart down to turn 1, I think the pace car lights are off, so we'll be going green this time around. Turn 1's going to be the place to watch, boys and girls.
Now, just check your chart there, Jeremy. When did Christian last come in? Because they're saying they reckon they can get to the end on his when he made his last stop, which sounds like an interesting piece of tactical play. And whether Christian really can make it to the end, is he going to struggle or can he do it comfortably?
He stopped on lap 58.
Yeah, well, that would seem to me very unlikely. They could make 42 laps on a tank of fuel. Maybe they're just counting on more yellows coming out.
I think, yeah, they're going to need some help from somebody, that's for sure.
Okay, pace car lights are out. We're getting ready to go again as they come down through corners 9 and 10, and then flat out, hard on it as they accelerate onto start-finish straight. Christian Fittipaldi leads. Look back to the battle behind, though. The first of the red cars is Richie Hearn. The second one is Alex Zanardi, and Zanardi there making progress, getting past Richie Hearn, as does Michael Andretti.
Richie Hearn doing a fine job there, get out of the way. No mistakes like at Portland last time when he held up Brian Herder and kept right out of the way, got accelerated clean out of that corner, then moved over, let the protagonist go through. And there is Arndt Meyer also letting Alex Zanardi through. Michael Andretti is behind Meyer, the yellow car of Arndt Meyer, trying to make a move now down between turns 4 and 5. There he goes down the inside.
Christian Fittipaldi then is our race leader. The car in second place is the car of Paul Tracy. And second place on the road, that is, but not second place in the race as such. He's lapped, so Paul Tracy, you can discount the green and white car. Second place in real life is Alex Zanardi in the red car, then Michael Andretti in 3rd position. 2 Newman Haas cars up there in the top 3. Great to see that they're back to full competitiveness on a track like this. And certainly they seem to be dealing with the setup issues here, the bumps of this track extremely well, and of course showing that the Goodyear tyre has made a great deal of progress. They hoped for better things after a strong showing in Portland, but remember, both cars were taken out by Greg Moore in Portland. They left Michael Andretti going round and round at the back of the field, but they did get some good information about the tyre wear, and they were very happy about the pace that Michael was able to do in Portland. It was just that because of that first lap accident, he really couldn't feature in the results.
No, that's exactly right. But certainly the Goodyear tyres looking very good this weekend. I think last weekend they really weren't on the pace of the Firestones, or last race I should say at Portland. They weren't really quite on the pace of the Firestones, but this weekend it's a lot closer, and particularly in race trim. But Michael Andretti certainly has fallen back from Alex Zanardi here at the restart, and he's got an awful lot of work to do. It's difficult enough to catch up with Alex Zanardi. It's even more difficult to get around the guy.
Yeah, that's right. Look at Zanardi lining up Paul Tracy now. I should think he's going to be a little bit careful here with Tracy's recent exploits, making most of the drivers fairly cautious if they have to deal with him. Shame this, because Tracy really drove well at the beginning of the race, and now things are a little bit more different. Meanwhile, Alonso Jr., keep an eye out for him slightly further back down the field. Tony Kanaan there just moving out of the way of Dario Franchitti there in 4th, Scott Pruitt in 5th. Those are the 2 cars you're looking at. There's Dario, 4th place for him. Good, solid performance this from the Scotsman so far. Had the accident in Portland. He came so close to a chance to win in Portland last time out, but a fumbled pit stop when he stalled it coming out of the pits really cost him any chance of winning, and then PJ Jones moved over on him in the latter part of the race, which took him out. But Franchitti, who's been on the podium already this year, that second place finish in Long Beach, that's his best result of the season so far. He's had a couple of 4th place finishes as well, Milwaukee and Detroit, and Franchitti lying in 4th position here again today. But with the prospect that Christian Fittipaldi may have to, well, really, we think, will have to make another stop if it stays green flag all the way to the end of the race. So could be a possible podium finish there for Franchitti if he can hold on to his current position. Christian Fittipaldi then, a 2.7 second lead over Alex Zanardi. Zanardi himself has got about 1 3/4 seconds over Michael Andretti. Then it's Franchitti, Pruitt, Unser, Herta, Fernandez, Gilles de Ferran and Jimmy Vasser rounding out the top 10. So great shots from on board with Michael, and there you can see a little more clearly perhaps from the cameras situated around the track just how close Franchitti is to the back of that car, and really in with a chance of passing in the remaining 14 laps, getting closer again as they go up through turns 5 and 6.
Michael Andretti, meanwhile, he's losing more than half a second a lap to the second place car of Alex Zanardi, and ahead of them, about 3 seconds up the road from Zanardi, is his own teammate Christian Fittipaldi. Of course, has got he's almost through that tank of fuel. We'll see how much of the fuel he has left. But there is Michael Andretti. There's heavy braking there, and down the 4th gear for turns 9 and 10 onto the start-finish straight.
Don't forget, Newman Haas have made a few mistakes on their calculations this year. We saw Michael Andretti run out of fuel when he was in a great position in Japan earlier on this season. And I'm sure they won't allow Christian to run out of fuel out on track, but he must be getting fairly close. He's done about 30 laps on that tank full at the moment. Can't imagine he's going to get more than 2 or 3 more laps out of it before he's going to have to come into the pits. And that, of course, will put Alex Zanardi back in the lead of the race. There's Scott Pruitt coming through in 5th place. 6th position for Alonso Jr. Not too far behind. Well, in fact, yeah, it is a 5-second gap back from these two to Brian Herta in 7th place. He's had a fairly quiet time of it. Brian Herta, who was really in a winning position in the last race in Portland until his team made that very odd call to bring him in early. And were there any repercussions that you came across after that, Jeremy?
No, as far as they were concerned, at that stage in the race, they were not going to be able to make it without making an extra splash of fuel. They figured they'd get it out of the way early rather than late. As it turned out, of course, that wasn't the case, but he was able to lean it off and get, most of the other teams were able to lean off their fuel mixture and make it to the end with only 2 pit stops. But certainly a minor miscalculation there. But, you know, they have to make a snap decision, the teams, in that sort of instance. You only have a few seconds to make the call whether or not to come into the pits. Yeah, okay, it was a wrong call, but it might have been the right call. You know, he was very, very close. Everybody else was really struggling to make it to the end with only 2 pit stops, and it could just as easily have fallen their way, just not on that occasion, unfortunately.
Well, for the moment, Herta lies in 7th, 8th for Fernandez, 9th for Gilles de Ferran, as you can see on the screen. Vasser in 10th, then Rahal, Blundell in 12th. They'll be disappointed with that run. Of course, Guterman had problems earlier on in the race, and he's still out there, but he's some 4 laps down. And there is Christian Fittipaldi at last. We said it had to be soon, and there he is into the pit lane. And it looks like just behind. In fact, Guterman's just clambered out of his car, so it looks as though it is the end of the race for Maurizio Guterman. Christian Fittipaldi don't quite know what that. Oh, he stalled the engine. That's what that hand signal meant. But they've managed to get it fired up again. Oh no, but it stalled it again, and there's some sort of problem with the motor. It does not want to run, and they cannot get this thing fired up again. It won't go, it won't go. Oh, can't even believe it. Christian always just seems to get the bad luck, doesn't he? And eventually he comes out of the pits. A 22-second stop when it should have been, well, under 10 seconds really, because he only needed a splash of fuel, and an absolute disaster for Christian Fittipaldi.
Tell you what, it's actually pretty much academic. He was going to fall out of the points in any case after that long, even if it was, he'd saved himself 10 seconds on that stop, he'd still be pretty much at the back of the pack. So it might have cost him maybe a point or 2 at the most. I think with the strategy they tried to pull there, it was not the right call. I think they were trying to make a play there for Michael Andretti on that restart, and that didn't work either. So not the best of decisions. Again, some fall your way, some don't, and I think Newman Haas this weekend caught out in the same way that Team Rahal was in the last race in Portland, really, Ben.
10 laps remain then, and Alex Zanardi is now the race leader. His advantage 10.8 seconds. And what more can we say about the Italian who has just dominated proceedings, won the championship last year. It was, well, in the second half of the season, all Alex Zanardi's way last year. But this year, he's really started off his championship defence in tremendous style on the ovals as well as on the road courses. He's already taken 4 wins. This could be win number 5, exactly the same number of wins as he took in the whole of 1997. A remarkable performance, and we're only just over halfway in the championship. This marks the start of the second part of the season here in Cleveland. Zanardi doing a remarkable job, but let's concentrate on this battle for second position. Andretti it is there in the black car in second. Franchitti in third place. Good result on the cards for both of these drivers, both of whom have been in great positions in other races this season. But Michael, for one, has had such a disastrous run that if he could just get on the podium again, I'm sure it would be a great relief. He did get a second place finish at Gateway. That was his last time on the podium. Since then, he's had a few problems. He led in Milwaukee, had the accident with Patrick Carpentier. He finished in 10th place in Detroit, and last time out in Portland, he was hit by Greg Moore, went on to finish in 17th place. Michael Andretti really has had a terribly up and down season, and mainly down, I have to say. Here he is in second place, running consistently and being chased by Dario Franchitti, the man only in his second season in the championship with this new team to him, Team Green. A second place already this season at Long Beach, and now perhaps another chance for a podium finish here.
Certainly right, and you know, this will be a booster for Michael Andretti. He thought he had a good chance to win this race coming into the weekend, and I must admit this morning, a couple of people asked me who my pick was, and I picked Michael Andretti. I thought Goodyear tyres were looking very, very good, but once again, you know, Alex Zanardi, he's managed to look after those fast-turn tyres. It's not terribly hot this afternoon, but it's certainly high 70s, maybe low 80s. And some of the teams were very concerned about tyre wear, but Alex Zanardi has been able to look after those rear tyres, and he's run a consistently fast pace, absolutely flawless drive once again, and he's so deserving of these victories.
Don't forget, all these drivers, when they made their third and final stop under the yellow flag we had at that occasion, it wasn't comfortable in terms of number of laps, so do keep an eye out for cars having to back off a little bit in the last few laps, perhaps to preserve an extra bit of fuel. That is still a little bit of an issue, although they should all be able to make it if they've managed their fuel mileage properly and if they've been getting the information from the team. On board at the moment with Bobby Rahal. Rahal, his last outing here at Cleveland, the track where he won the first Burke Lakefront race back in 1982, and originally from just sort of 30-40 miles away from here as well, so a lot of home support at this track. An important race for him. At the moment they're running in 10th position. Adrian Fernandez at the head of that little group in 7th place now. Gilda Ferran in 8th, Jimmy Vasser 9th, then Rahal and Mark Blundell. Blundell still looks as though he'd be fairly eager to get past Bobby Rahal, and we could see perhaps 1 or 2 changes in this group before the end of the race. Just 7 laps to go now. Alex Zanardi with a 10.8 second lead over Michael Andretti.
Mark Blundell, of course, he ran well in the early stages. I think it was the second pit stop that was relatively slow. It cost him a couple of positions.
Just looking back over the last 8 winners in the last 8 years, and you can see different winners all the way through there. Danny Sullivan in 1990, Michael Andretti a winner in 1991. But what this would mean is that Alex Zanardi, if he holds on to the lead, will become the first back-to-back winner at Cleveland. It's always thrown up different winners, different situations, but Alex Zanardi last year, remember, in that incredible recovery drive when he dropped to 22nd position as a result of picking up penalties in the pit lane for an infringement on the rules, he stormed his way back through to take the lead with just 5 laps to go. Well, now there are 6 laps to go. Look at Mark Blundell. He's got past Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal loses that position, and Blundell goes into 10th. Well, it might only be minor points placings, but psychologically a boost for Blundell there as he tries to make up some of the lost ground in this race. He was running competitively up in the top 5 earlier on in this race, and unfortunately things went wrong for him in the pit lane, but at least he's got the satisfaction there of getting past Rahal. A little bit of concern down in the Newman Haas pit there, keeping an eye on the telemetry and particularly on the amount of fuel that's in that car. As I said, quite a few of these cars will be running very, very close to the limit on fuel with 5 laps to go, 10 miles. Michael is trying to just conserve fuel a little bit, but keeping a very close eye on Dario Franchitti in his mirrors. Of course, Franchitti himself won't be able to run flat out either. He's also got to watch the fuel, but perhaps slightly different consumption worries between the Ford Cosworth power unit and the Honda V8. Hearing from the pits that Franchitti's Team Green are informing him that he can just richen up his mixture a bit. He's in pretty good shape on fuel, and it could mean that we're in for a grandstand finish in this battle for second position. Perhaps Franchitti is going to be able to turn up the wick a little bit, give himself a little bit more horsepower for these long straights, and have a chance of grabbing second. But to find a way past Michael Andretti and make it stick, well, there's a test for the young Scotsman. That is not going to be easy at all. Andretti, one of the most aggressive racers out there.
Well, we've lost Alonso Jr. didn't come past here. There goes Scott Pruitt, and Brian Herter actually closing in very rapidly on Scott Pruitt, but also here is Unser into the pits.
Alonso Jr. into the pits, going very, very slowly indeed, and it looks as though it is the end of the race. Oh, not again. He just seems to have the bad luck as well. Ribeiro already out of this race, coasting into the pits, and we have just a local yellow out on one of the track somewhere. Not a full course caution, but Alonso Jr. there is the local yellow. Now, is that presumably Paul Tracy? Yeah, Paul Tracy, who's gone off. There he is in the number 26 car. He really has had a pretty torrid time this afternoon. I should think they'll be able to stay green. The safety car can pull that car backwards out of the way. There really shouldn't be any need to go to a full course caution. 97 laps completed, just 3 laps to go here. I think the Ford boys would actually quite like a yellow to come out for the last few laps. They're looking a bit concerned down there in the Newman-Haas pit. Michael Andretti still holds on to second place by a few fractions of a second from Dario Franchitti, and it's not going to go to a full course yellow. So Michael is going to have to hold off Franchitti for the last 3 laps if he can. But Dario determined to try and match that second place that he scored in Long Beach. No worries for Alex Zanardi. He's some 10 seconds ahead of this battle. Here they come past the place where Paul Tracy's off at the side of the road. So yellow flag there. No overtaking at that particular spot. But once they're past the incident, of course, they can go for it once again, and Franchitti trying to close up that gap on Michael Andretti.
2 laps to go now. That's all there is. Not much time to make a move there for Dario Franchitti. Closes right up under braking, but Andretti able to get into the corner cleanly and still in second place. So as you say, 10 seconds or 9.3 it was the gap behind Zanardi. Is this pair battling for second place, but just one more good opportunity for Dario Franchitti. He'll be down at turn 1 on the final lap.
Well, it's all to play for still, but look at Alex Zanardi. What a brilliant drive. As I said earlier, what more can we say about him? He just seems to do the job every time he goes out there, and you have to say it has been a very impressive showing once more from the Italian. He got past his teammate Jimmy Vasser, who was on the pole position, but had his gearbox troubles to worry about. Zanardi's coming around to take the white flag and go on to the final lap. It is going to be win number 5 for the 1997 champion, and he's further going to extend his series lead. His nearest rival, Greg Moore, went out of the race. Jimmy Vasser, his next nearest rival, is likely to finish in 8th position, but 8th position will only pick up 8 points. Oh, indeed, 5 points.
Turn 1, I'm looking here, and Herder dived to the inside of Scott Pruitt, didn't make it, and has spun off the road. I think he stalled the engine.
So Brian Herter in trouble on this final lap. We're concentrating on the race leader, the man who's going to further extend his points lead. It was 38 points his advantage over Greg Moore coming into this race. It'll be 59 points with him having led the most laps over Greg Moore after this race. And although Jimmy Vasser will score 5 points, that'll put Vasser still just behind Greg Moore. Alex Zanardi is heading towards a massive championship lead as he comes through to take the 5th win of the season and the 7th win of the year for Team Target Ganassi. A brilliant performance from Alex Zanardi. He does it again. The battle for second place is coming across the line, but it is Michael Andretti who takes second, Franchitti who takes third. You just saw a glimpse there of Brian Herter, as Jeremy mentioned, who spun on going on to that last lap. So it's Scott Pruitt who comes through in 4th position. Brian Herter is not top 10. It means that Adrian Fernandez should come through. There he goes in 5th position. We can just see him crossing the line. You're concentrating on our race winner, Alex Zanardi. But let me tell you that Fernandez is 5th, De Ferran 6th, Jimmy Vasser finishing in 7th, Bobby Rahal in 8th place, Patrick Carpentier 9th, Mark Blundell in 10th, ahead of Christian Fittipaldi, who did get back into the points just, and Max Papis, who finishes in 12th. The second race in succession, Max Papis scoring the final point. Alex Zanardi, though, the winner here in Cleveland. He opens up another big championship lead. Is anybody going to be able to stop it in 1998? The final results, and Zanardi on top once again.